Welcome, everybody, to this new edition of Real Talk, Real Life Real Estate with John Bell. We've got a great guest today, Steve Frye,
Thank you.
with Hive Realty, one of my good friends and a great realtor, and a great real estate investor. So we're gonna talk about that, as well as the National Association of Realtors lawsuit settlement over commissions. And a lot of people are talking about that. A lot of people have ideas about it, and we really don't know is the answer. But I think it's interesting to talk about, and it's something that needs to be talked about. So how are you doing, Steve?
Doing good. I appreciate you having me on today. Thank you.
Man, thanks for coming.
I've been looking forward to this.
How long have you been in Nashville?
So I've actually been here most of my life. I moved here when I was 5 years old.
Oh, really?
Well,
you are, yeah.
Or my parents moved here when I was 5 years old. Grew up here.
Moved here.
Yeah, grew up here in Nashville.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to McGavick.
Okay, I went to Overton.
Over there in Donaldson.
See, I was born and raised,
Yeah.
I was 5 years ahead of you.
Oh, yeah, okay. I went to McGavick, actually met my wife at McGavick
Oh, really?
as seniors.
I did
Been
not
together
know
ever
that.
since, so we were just doing the math the other day. It's like 36 years together, 31 married, so it's been a minute.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you
Yeah.
married your high school sweetheart.
Did,
And she's
yeah.
awesome, too.
Oh,
That
yeah.
that doesn't happen often,
She's great, and she's stayed great. She's put up
Yeah.
with all my wild crap I put her through. So,
Yeah.
she deserves an award just for that. But we got two awesome sons.
Yeah.
Both of them
One
are
of
in
them
real
works
estate.
with you.
Yep.
Both of them work with y'all?
They both work
Yeah.
in real estate. Yeah.
I just hadn't met the other one yet, I don't think.
Yeah, one's 27, Logan, and then I got a 24-year-old named Bailey, my younger son. They're both realtors, and Bailey helps me with marketing, and he's really computer savvy, so I throw everything at him.
The tech stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Exactly. I got to have somebody.
Yeah, no doubt. So what got you into real estate?
So I was a corporate finance guy for about 20 plus years, always in healthcare, and it's an interesting world. Once
Is that like accounting, CFO stuff?
It was
what do you
more
mean
like
by corporate finance?
director, VP of finance kind of role. So there was a lot of reporting, a lot of budget work, working with operations, working with sales. So I really enjoyed that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So because it was, I had an accounting degree, but I was able to take that and work more with more interesting applications of it.
Yeah.
So there was always something different with it.
Not just doing P&Ls and stuff
Correct.
like that.
Yeah, I never
Tax
had
returns.
that every single month you do the same type job.
Yeah, because that's not your disc profile, which is a personality profile. You're not just
Correct.
one to just head down in the numbers all day, every day for
Yeah.
years and years.
I was always even after all those years, I was always filled a little duck out of water with the finance group and guys that I hung out with. That's why I think I always we always had like more interesting. Not to say they weren't interesting, but we always had like a big variety of friends outside of that. A lot of music friends, a lot of people that had creative types.
Right.
Yeah.
The shoot, forgot what I was going to say. So, what I was going to say was I'm in that entrepreneurs organization, the group of business owners, but healthcare, especially in Nashville, is such a great business.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, those guys have made some money.
Yeah, I mean, it's the number one industry in Nashville, which is funny to a lot of people because they just think it's music city. But and once you get into that industry, it's a good one to bounce around in because it's almost hard to break in, but once you get in, it's
you just bounce between other companies if you want to.
Yeah. So I was in that industry for a little over 20 years.
Nice.
I had some good runs with some nice, really great companies. Right at the end, I had a couple of companies. One where I lost a position, one because of an acquisition, got let go. The whole group got let go, and then you go and find. It's hard, not easy finding those jobs. So you go and find the next gig. And I was there like 6 months, and they said, "Hey, we're going to move operations to Texas if you want to do that." And
Wow.
it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. And I wish I wouldn't have gotten into this situation. So my wife, Lisa, actually is the one who kind of pushed me at that time. She said, "Hey, you've always wanted to run your own company or do something on the side. You liked real estate. We already had a short-term rental, under our little wing." So I went and took the test, passed it right off the bat, hung my hat with Village, and I was in real estate before I even knew it. I mean, it was.
What year was that?
That was end of 2018. Yeah. So
was Village, was Deutsch was still at Village and all that, and
Yep.
Bobby Noreen
Yep.
and Rudy Title. That was back kind of the glory days.
Yeah,
of
it was.
Rudy.
Yeah. Things were rocking
All the
and
cool
rolling there.
kids worked there. Yeah.
It was, and it was a good place to go and like I said, hang my hat. Great education. I just kind of hit the ground running because partly because I had to. I wasn't one of these agents that had, a dad or a spouse with a lot of business that I could just inherit, or a bunch of people with a bunch of money that just would automatically let me sell their house. So it was like, okay, what can I do to jump into real estate and differentiate myself from the crowd? And for me, I said, well, let me use my finance background, for one, because it was interesting enough to me, too, to say, how can I leverage my finance background into that? So I kind of went hard after the investor world. And it's
And
interesting.
you already had a short-term rental.
Yeah.
So, and you did that while you were in healthcare. Is that your Gatlinburg property?
No,
or is it in
that was one
Nashville?
here in Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was even.
That was kind of the beginning of that also, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So Airbnb really got kind of cranking in 2015, 2016 throughout the city, and we started ours up right around 2016, 2017. So it was early Wild West days.
So you got into real estate, really, while you were still in healthcare.
I did. So I told my wife, and I was looking for a job still in healthcare, but as I dove into real estate, I was like head first into it, and I was pouring
Fun, isn't it?
tons of hours into it. Yeah, and it was like, man, this is really what I want to do, and I felt like I was getting some great traction, and I could feel things snowball. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I feel like I was going to go and do this part time while I'm looking for, and get back into healthcare again.
Right.
And I never.
Because you got the paycheck and the health insurance and all that.
100%. But you got to pay the light bill. Especially when in my scenario where I was like, head of a household type thing. But we luckily things worked out. I had a deal pretty early on, and then I had a bunch of stuff that was starting to really gather.
How did you get started back then? Because I think for new agents they might want to.
Yeah. So my.
How did you get listings and so you didn't go team? You didn't really. Nobody was giving you
Correct.
leads.
I just stayed independent.
You didn't have realtor proteges, parents, or anything.
No, not really. What really helped me though is my older son Logan was already in real estate, working as an assistant for a good sized team, had 5 or 6 people to it. So everything I needed to know about real estate, but I never could get to the brokers to ask him, or I was confused about. He was like a built-in brokerage, like right there for me. So he started working for me about a little under a year after I got there, but he was already a sounding board for me for a lot of questions, and that's huge.
And he could go ask them if he didn't know the answer yet.
Exactly, but
so you kind of had a mentor.
Yeah, like my son was my mentor.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
And it was invaluable because I was just, like I said, head down, doing as much as I could, and it wasn't as much going to him saying, how do I do this? It was more about, is it okay to do this?
Yeah.
Because he was always telling me, you can't say that, you don't do that, don't step on those toes. And so he kind of gave me a lot of like guardrails that I needed back then so that I didn't step on toes and get my license revoked within 6 months or whatever. But I went after investors really through several investor websites.
So when you started with investors.
Yeah, I did. So Bigger Pockets was probably my biggest source of business and activity back then. So I went on there, and one of the first things I did, I set up a bunch of keywords. So anytime anybody mentioned the word Nashville or investing or Middle Tennessee or Airbnbs, anything that had to do with that, I'd get an email, and then I'd go and answer them, and I became like an advocate or a resource for them in the
What
forums.
was the name of the website?
Bigger Pockets.
Is that still a thing?
It is, yeah. Bigger Pockets is huge, and it's a free website.
So if I've got a 10 build and I need some investors, it's something you could go on there and see if anybody's interested, or is it not?
It's got a little bit of all of that. It's for the most part, there's just a lot of people asking. Sometimes it's elementary type questions, but there's also some pretty experienced and big investors that are there to meet others, but just the forum section, the message boards are just invaluable, and it's all free.
But they let you buy. Is it free to get the keywords and email sent to you?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Every bit of that part is free. I've been a paid member now for a couple years, like at a pro level, just to help draw business and to have an account there and show my deals and all that stuff. But up on the front end, I had no money and no experience.
Yeah.
Like, I just dove in and said, okay, what is everybody talking about? Like, what are they looking for? And once I found out what people were looking for and what were the biggest needs, I just went out there and started like finding it. So I would go and just research to death everything I could find, from real tracks and looking on the MLS and talking to people and investor groups and going on Facebook and all that stuff. So then I would just bring those opportunities to those guys. And I was shocked when it worked. Like, all of a sudden, I started getting deals from those scenarios. I didn't have to hard sell anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't have to feel sleazy or be a snake oil
And
guy.
handing out your business cards at gas stations.
Exactly. Because I never wanted to do that. I'd never done sales, and I thought, how's a finance guy going to be a sales guy? But I didn't really have to be a sales guy. I just had to be a resource.
Facilitator, yeah.
Yeah, facilitator is a great word for
Not
it.
not in the technical.
Mm-hmm.
If we start talking about NAR, that's
Yeah,
the thing, But, you're really a resource. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, see, that's what our coaches talk to us about is, at bringing value.
Yeah.
And attracting instead of, going out with facts and
100%.
figures and trying to hard sell you into, using our title company.
100%. I mean, you do get to a point though where you get more comfortable. And it's funny, when you first start in real estate, you're afraid to ask anybody anything. You're even afraid to ask them about, do you want to submit an offer? And it's because it feels like such a big imposition to ask someone that. I've been in real estate now for 5.5 years, and I'll ask anybody up and down the hallway, do you want to submit an offer on something?
Yeah.
Once you get that confidence and it's this more natural part of your personality, then it doesn't feel so.
Well, you don't
like that.
When they say no, I'm not ready to make an answer. You're not a hard sell closer. I mean, you are a closer, but I'm just saying.
Exactly.
You're
I want
still not
what's best for them.
Right.
I want to be on their timeline, but if it's something that's a really great opportunity, I also want to really push and emphasize that because I see it and live it every single day. So I'll know a lot of times if it's a much better opportunity than they're normally going to get.
Well, I think, and I have no idea, but working with me on some investments, it's like, we have made some offers when it's the right deal.
Yeah.
For me, and other people would have different perspectives.
Absolutely.
But you always respected mine.
Yeah.
I mean, you understood. I try to. I'm a real. I buy on information.
Sure. Yeah.
And if I don't have all the information, I feel incomplete or in my decision or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but it's been good working with you as far as those things, so I can.
Well,
attest to that.
and investors are smart folks. I mean, you definitely are.
Well, we
smart
sit down and run the numbers, and they either work or not. And what's your goal? Just acquire property, break even, and get the appreciation. That's the thing. And the future rents will go up.
Yeah.
Those are certainly decent objectives, but it depends on your time, where you are in life, and those kind of things. Or if you just really wanting to kill cash flow, which everybody's wanting to do, so it's harder to find those deals.
Yeah, I mean, in today's market with the rates and the limited inventory, I mean, it's a struggle to find really great opportunities unless you can create it through some kind of like sweat equity or leverage through the property itself.
Forced equity,
value add, forced equity. But there are a lot of benefits too to people still picking up properties and, like you mentioned, getting the tax deductions and having the property paid off and getting appreciation and depreciation. So the smart investor usually has all those things kind of in their
that's another thing. Do you advise your investment clients to do cost segregation, accelerated depreciation?
Yeah, I try to as much as possible. I mean, some of them are newer investors, and that's just a big scary thing for them, so they stay away from it for the most part. But I always mention it. But I work with a lot of big, experienced investors as well that they'll buy a couple properties every year, and that's just part of it. And they're using those dollars, their refund and tax credit to offset their income, and then it just rolls forward into the next property.
If you've got a lot of income, that tax deduction's huge.
Yeah, exactly. a lot of money out there. You know, I didn't even realize that as much until I really got into real estate, and it feels like there's just an unlimited amount of money out there, and people.
I've got a friend who was going to do RV parks, buy.
Oh yeah.
I think we've talked about
huge.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Renovate, raise the rents, and either refinance or sell.
Yeah.
He started 1 year ago. 1 year ago, we went to a fund launch thing, and I think they had maybe 2 RV parks.
Mm-hmm.
In 1 year, he's got $50 million worth of RV parks that he's the general partner on.
Yeah.
Now, he's got to run them all
Yeah.
for the 2 years and put in the CapEx,
Yeah.
the capital expenditures to improve the property where they can raise the rents, which raises the net operating
Mm-hmm.
income, which determines the price based on cap rate.
Sure. Yeah.
And so he's got a challenge, to make all that happen in
That's
the
a lot of
background.
work. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that segment, that asset class, they bought one the other day for like $3 million and it appraised for $2 million, for $5 million. So, but you just,
Yeah.
it just says mom and pop
I love
shops.
it.
You really don't know.
Yeah. I love it.
They
though.
don't know the value.
But
So
there's a lot of
it's-
money
Yeah,
ready to get
my
thrown at
point
that.
is that exactly if there wasn't money on the sidelines. Now he partnered with a dentist who had a podcast
Mhm.
on. It's called the Debt Free Doctor. Feel free to look at it.
Huh.
Blue Metric Group is the RV park syndicator, and they've got a fund which is a syndication. You're buying in one property.
Yeah.
A fund, you're just they buy whatever they want to from
Yeah.
their perspective, from the investor's perspective.
Especially when
They're
they start
getting the returns.
Yeah, when they start proving their worth.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Then people are just
They've
ready to throw money
yeah.
at it. Yeah.
And everybody that put the 30, basically you got to raise 30% because the bank would finance 70.
Mhm.
So I've got a $1 million RV park. I got to raise $300,000.
Yeah.
Well, this debt-free doctor who had this podcast was able to bring in 30% of $50 million. That's $15 million.
$15 million just through his resort or contacts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my point is, it shows you how much money is out there on the sidelines.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just looking for good opportunities. I mean, there's, I think for a long time people threw money at multifamily and all these investor opportunities when the rates were low because it was almost like they couldn't hardly lose,
Right.
scenario. But now they've really got to be smart about it. So, and hopefully, hopefully rates will creep back down a little bit over the next couple of years. I mean, it's been a hard push this year getting them to move at all, but
they're stubborn. They're
Mhm.
stubborn. When they're in, I guess, in the 6% range now.
yeah, like 6.8. I think I saw today. But
So the folks we're looking at, National Association of Realtor Economists, the Mortgage Bankers Economists,
Yeah.
the Wells Fargo, those different kind of guys. Everybody's kind of saying 6.8. We might get to 6% by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So it's not a whole lot of movement.
Yeah, but we have. It's funny because you see people put up the memes and stuff on social media, and they're like, for every half a point that rates drop, you see X number of millions of buyers hit the market. But it's a real thing. I mean, like even from the start of this year, because October rates hit 8%, and that was kind of like the tippy top, at least at that point. Hopefully that's the tippy top. And then, but by the time January 1st came around after the holidays, there was a lot of activity. I mean, I think I wrote 13, contracts in the first 5 weeks of the year. And people were just, ready to kind of move. And I think they all felt like they've been sitting on the sidelines for a while. The trick is going to be to getting the sellers to unleash some more inventory.
Yeah, that is the problem. But I'm of the opinion that eventually people are going to get tired of their house and just move no matter what.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
I don't think we're there yet from that perspective. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's just hard to, I bought a $600,000 house right before COVID or kind of during COVID.
Yeah.
That went up to $1 million. But I got but I got 600,000
Mhm.
at 3.5%. The house is supposed to be $1 million,
Yeah.
so I got that equity. But I got this $3,200 a month payment for $1 million house. It's an $8,000 payment for if you have to pay $1 million.
100%,
So
yeah.
to get in the same house,
Yeah.
I got to double. I got to pay $7,000 a month.
mean,
Which
it's-
is,
yeah.
I thought the $3,250 was going to kill me.
Yeah.
But now it's like cheap.
I do feel bad for people, younger people coming into this marketplace, and that Gen X and millennial crowd. I mean, they've got, it's a big scary number out there to go and try to sign up for a house. But the trick is, what we always tell them is, just try to get something on the front end. Just, if you can get into a home. I mean, there's no shame in renting versus buying at all. And in some certain markets, renting's better than buying, but buying still feels really good. And you're building that appreciation, and you're getting that side of it. So it's not just dollar for dollar that you're putting out every month. And there's all the benefits for the mortgage
Well,
side.
you got the tax deduction on the mortgage interest. You've got the internal appreciation.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of stories I've got when I've seen where somebody's bought a house, a young person's bought a house, and 2 years later, they're selling it for 30% gain or something. Maybe 2 or 3 years later, it might be a little slower here in the next couple of years, but
It's still 5 or 6%.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, a 5% appreciation on a $300,000 house is
15,000.
yeah, 15,000. No.
You're the accountant.
I know. That's $6,000, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but no, you're right. $15,000. Yeah. So $15,000. So all of us, that's
A
real
year,
money and that compounds over a couple of years. All of a sudden, you're up $50,000.
All right, let's talk about what you see for real estate investors right now in Middle Tennessee or or even Florida, or if whatever areas you go to. I know that you're active in East Tennessee. Talk a little bit about the East Tennessee market. I think that's a market that would interest people because people are somewhat familiar maybe with short-term rental here, or sometimes familiar with vacation rentals in Florida.
Yeah.
But don't think about Gatlinburg. But I think it's a solid place to have a really vacation rental property because, like Orlando with Disney, I think the crowd that they attract is so loyal. They don't want to go to Las Vegas; they want to go to the mountains.
100%. I mean, and Nashville and Gatlinburg are always some of the top.
Well, Nashville's a destination too.
Yeah. Nashville and Gatlinburg markets are both usually top 5 Airbnb markets. So
Really?
those are. I mean, of course, Florida is going to be Orlando, but they're usually right up around there. And so it's interesting because as much as Nashville is a tourist city, I mean, we get, I'm going to guess 16, 17 million tourists per year. Gatlinburg's not far behind them, and it's 2 little cities joined by a parkway. But it's just such it is a big space once you get there, full of these mountains, full of cabins. And the great thing about there is the economy is driven and run kind of by these cabins. So they're not going anywhere. They're not going to do anything to try to outlaw them or regulate them too much because there's not hardly any hotels. So I mean, if they want their 12, 13 million tourists a year to come and have a place to stay, they've got to have those cabins available. So they have been building quite a bit there in the past few years. I think there's been a lot more attention there. So you're starting to see bigger properties, 4, 5, 6 bedroom properties with pools in them. I mean, they're pretty tricked out. So and those price points can go up pretty well, but and they have ran up a bit over the past few years. But I still see a lot of investors, if they can get into a property, even a 2-bedroom there, you'll find a lot more options than you would here in Nashville. If you can get into a property there for $400,000 or $500,000 and bring a good designer touch to it and promote it and get good pictures, and you can do as well as any place in the country, even at that price point, which a lot of people feel like there's that price may not get them anywhere.
Right.
But it's still a great market for that, and it's more of a year-round market. The cabins do better than I've noticed the condos and the townhomes do. I think just because everyone has that mental image.
That's the thing. I don't think Gatlinburg could outlaw short-term rental cabins because, I mean, you want to go to the cabin. I mean, that's the point. That's like the beach, being on the water, with a beach situation.
We've got a townhome there we've renovated, and then we also have a 4-bedroom cabin. And 4-bedroom cabin is way more consistent. I mean, it's a bigger property, but it's more expensive to rent too, but it stays booked more. And I think it's just because that's what people envision, when they're wanting to go to the mountains.
How much is that, the 4-bedroom cabin worth?
It's about 1.2, somewhere around there. The townhome is, I think we paid $250 for it. We probably put about $40 into it as far as renovations. Shouldn't have cost that much. We just got it the wrong contractor, and we weren't very smart. So we could have probably done it for $25 if we were, more experienced now. But it's worth. We're probably up $100,000 on it. So that's nice. Even to have this type of variety. It's gotten paid down some over the years. So
Yeah.
It's
That's the other thing. I mean, eventually it pays down.
and it gives me, both those places give me, especially our townhome, gives me a spot to go and stay when I'm up there working. So I'll periodically have people that reach out to me about Nashville or the Smokies, because sometimes it's Nashville people move to the Smokies if they can't find what they're looking for here. So I'll go and meet them if it's a good opportunity, and we'll spend a couple days up there and look around. So nothing like having a great little crash pad.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
great.
but-
Yeah, I'd like to have one in Florida personally, but I've just been
Yeah.
having trouble because Florida's really sort of cracked down on short-term rentals in a lot of the areas,
Yeah.
and I can't really.
Yeah, they have. It's expensive, but it's all about the experience down there too. So.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So what are your seasoned investors? You guys, like you said, about maybe a couple a year, looking at in Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, lately, I'll say over the past year and a half, I've been getting more requests from them for. Still short-term rentals are popular. I've got 3 or 4 listed right now that I've got a couple under contract. I probably get a buyer every week, that looking for something in that area, that asset class, and they don't always flush out, but about
Yeah.
I'll say 90% of them don't, but the 10% that do are nice and good investors. But a lot of times they if they go for the bigger properties, that's what most of them have been looking for recently, the higher end
Well,
properties.
that's what I see. Yeah, the 4-bedroom, million plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of that Grant has and stuff.
There's a wave recently. That market has slid a little bit as far as price points because of the rates. I think there hasn't been as many buyers.
Because they don't, the numbers don't work at those price points at that rate.
Correct, unless it's just a really dynamite property.
Yeah.
There's places in town that hit $200,000 and up per year in short-term rental revenue, but you're also paying for that. They're not going to get that for $800,000. They're gonna, when they price it, they're going to price it, to where you're, it's kind of appropriate. But
Yeah.
but areas like the Gulch, with great views, anything closer to town with great views, and a good sized property, if it comes furnished already, if it's got a history already, a good rental revenue
Yeah.
history, that always helps too. But there's,
Yeah, 'cause,
I have seen
that's
prices
super
start to
helpful
slide.
for the buyer to have a rental history.
Yeah, I've seen prices start to slide, and recently when I've been putting things on market, I've been really having those upfront conversations with my clients saying, okay, yeah, here's what the history has been on it, but nothing's selling at that price point. So let's be 50,000 under that, or 75,000 under that, and that seems to be getting a lot more traction.
Right.
So the buyers are still there. They just need to be smarter.
What about have you done any LLC short-term rental transfers?
Yeah, that's pretty unique to Nashville. I think that it does
Yeah,
happen.
because of the rules. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it happens around the country sometimes too, because I've had some investors that were familiar with it from other markets. But yeah, the LLC transfers are just a whole nother game.
What that is for the listeners and viewers is the some short-term rental permits in Davidson County were grandfathered in. They're not available any longer, and so instead of an individual getting the permit to rent a STR legally in Davidson County, Nashville, they put the permit name in an LLC, so you can sell the LLC to another party which owns the permit that allows it, and without selling the actual underlying real estate.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the
And
property and the
Metro
permit
hasn't
come with
pushed,
it.
Metro Davidson County hasn't pushed back on that.
It feels like that's
You'd
theirs.
think they would, but I haven't
know.
heard anything.
That was their proposed solution on the front end, and there's a guy, there's a couple of attorneys in town that were really instrumental in kind of driving that. But it's properties that were zoned RM for residential multifamily. Originally were part of the ones that could get permits, and then they phased that out because of the residential aspect. but there was a lot of great properties in town that are RM zone, a lot of great areas. So if you do have it under an LLC, like you said, somebody could come and purchase the LLC,
Which owns the property.
which owns the property. So it's equivalent to the price of what that house would have cost anyway.
Right.
But you're just going about
The
it. by
LLC has no
LLC.
value except for whatever the house.
Correct.
Yeah.
The cool thing about those, if you can make it work out, is you're also acquiring the permit, so you can just go from day one
Yeah.
on rentings and pick up the bookings and just start
Yeah.
booking from day one. You don't have to go through the process of, okay, let me go and apply for the permit.
If you buy it outside of LLC, you got to go through all that. It's
Yeah.
harder to pick up the others.
Yeah, that's more like about a month right now is what the runtime is to get a
Okay.
new permit. But you can
Is that
acquire
what it is?
one that's,
Yeah.
boom. Yeah.
That's sweet. All right. Well, it sounds like real estate investing is alive and well. I like that.
Yeah.
We're going to change tracks a little bit and talk about this National Association of Realtors settlement.
Yeah.
Kind of bring everybody up to speed, and then you
Mhm.
help me in describing what the issue is if people
Sure.
aren't familiar with it. A group of, I guess, home buyers or home sellers sued the National Association of Realtors.
Home sellers originally, yeah.
Home sellers, and
It was Missouri, I think, is where it started.
they also sued Keller Williams and several other brokerages. So what they were alleging is that in the MLS system, when you list a property in there, the MLS is MLS owned by National Association of Realtors?
Yeah, the
Or
individual ones
controls.
are like the ones here, Greater Nashville Association of Realtors,
Controls the MLS.
the local MLS.
So the
yeah.
local chapter.
Mhm.
So they would put on there how much they were going to pay the buyer's agent's commission. And 90% of all residential consumer transactions, would you say, was 6% commission, 3 to the buyer, 3 to the seller?
Yeah, here in Nashville, but that wasn't the case everywhere in the country. I mean,
It
California is 4 to 5%, and has been for a while, pretty
Is that,
consistently.
but then you're selling, every house is $1 million.
Yeah, so I think it was a byproduct of the
Yeah.
values of the homes, yeah.
So the plaintiffs alleged that was price fixing, and they won. Basically, what the settlement was reached with these home buyers and then other plaintiffs and other class action attorneys. And then NAR got a $75 million fine or somewhere around that, and that was part of the settlement. And Keller Williams and some others, they've had to write some pretty big checks.
Yeah.
So what, at first glance, it looks like sellers can't pay buyer's agent's commission, so no buyers are going to have an agent.
Yeah,
They're just going to
yeah.
have to trust the listing agent. We'll talk about all the problems that can cause, and really how terrible that is for a first-time home buyer. I mean,
yeah.
they're just supposed to walk around and trust the listing agent.
Yeah.
It's having unintended consequences.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, and that starts in July unless something changes. So how do you see, really, if you're going to be honest, how real estate agents are going to have to work around that?
Yeah,
I mean, what's going to happen?
So, and they've given, and part of the thing that was really frustrating on the front end is they dropped, there was talk about this for a while. I think
The lawsuit was filed, and we didn't know who was going to win.
exactly.
Right?
So, and we filed. Okay, the thinking was, okay, NAR's going to push back. They're going to make a case, and they kind of rolled over a little bit, definitely, on this whole thing.
Well,
Yeah.
that's your opinion? Yeah,
Yeah.
They claim it's the best deal they could
Yeah.
get. They could have gone out of business if they'd have fought it longer.
But when the original lawsuits were happening, there was hardly any representation or even real agents there to debunk it and argue the case. Felt like it just kind of got pushed right through the courts. And then, so NAR then got
it
behind the eight
never
ball.
went to trial, so it was all just
Yeah.
negotiations between the parties.
Exactly. So NAR got behind the eight ball, and what they came up with was a $418 million settlement. And as part of that, it swept up anybody that was brokerages that are under $2 billion a year in sales. They said, okay, all you guys are covered under our settlement amount. Now they'll probably ding us on the back end with increased membership fees to pay for some of this, but any brokerages that are over $2 billion a year were kind of left on their own. So some of those brokerages, like Keller, EXP, I think a few of those had already negotiated their own deals. but like Compass got wasn't swept up in that originally. I mean,
But they are now.
they are now, but like their original. So NAR, when they did that settlement, they came back and gave a valuation that these companies would have to like pay out based on their sales. Compass's original amount was going to be more than NAR paid, but Compass went and settled for like, I think $50 million or something, or somewhere around that, almost 10% of what their original settlement amount would have been under that. So
That sort of proves that NAR, because
Yeah.
really all you're doing, the buyers and sellers are going to get anything. The lawyers
No.
get all the money.
yeah, I think I saw where everybody that's now in the original lawsuit, just based on those settlement amounts, I mean, you might get $30 or something if you're a homeowner. I mean, the attorney's got a third of the cut. Of the 2/3 that was left, I mean, it's a very, very tiny piece. So it really wasn't about, like, I guess, money back to those homeowners, but it did kind of prove the point of, okay, let's disrupt the commission structure, which is what they were, truly after. So, and it is scary when you see that, just because it's worked for so long and it works well like it does now, because in a transaction, the seller is the one typically with the funds to help pay for those types of things. A buyer is a lot of times, I mean, there's plenty of buyers that are well funded or even coming to the table with cash, but you get a lot of buyers that are scraping together their nickels.
And that's the thing. It's going to affect the first-time home buyer, the lower, economic, level folks that
Yeah.
aren't as sophisticated at these kind of transactions. So
100%.
let me give you some myths, and you tell me the truth. Okay.
Yeah.
So I understand this settlement.
Mhm.
This is the myth. Sellers cannot pay buyers' agents' commissions.
That's correct. But that's correct in that they can't offer to pay through the MLS. They
Okay,
can't.
yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, they can't make an offer through the MLS to a buyer agent compensation like they historically have. That's how it's been, I'm going to say, for the last 20 years or something like that, 15, 20 years. So before, it was when you were a buyer agent, you worked with a buyer, and like in Tennessee, we would still get them to do a buyer agent representation.
And that's
form.
the other thing in the lawsuit. Everybody has to.
Yeah, everyone has to do it now, but we were already doing it as well.
Right.
But not every
the good
market.
realtors were.
Yeah, not every market required it too.
Okay,
I've
right.
seen lots of markets, agents from other markets come back and say, yeah, we didn't have to do that. I mean, we still could do it, but we didn't have to do it. We've always done it here in Nashville. But typically the understanding was, okay, there is going to be an offer of compensation, with that transaction to the buyer agent side. The 6% that they touted, really heavily through in the settlement, that's always been negotiable. So they made it sound like it was a hard fixed number.
Well, that's the next myth.
Mm-hmm.
So now, unlike in the past,
Yeah,
commissions can be negotiated.
yeah,
But that's not true. They've always been negotiated.
100%. I mean, there's
A million
plenty.
guys do 2%.
Mhm.
Listing fees,
yeah.
builders sometimes only pay 2%.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's typically agents that work with large scale builders. I mean, they might be getting less than 1% on their listing. That
Yeah.
they're representing, but they're representing a neighborhood or block of
Right.
homes. But yeah, you still see a lot of 3% out there, but it's not uncommon to see a 2.5%. And in the Smoky Mountain market, it's funny, that's been 2 to 2.5% for a long time for buyer agent compensation. So I don't know at what point they jumped to that, but maybe they were forward thinking or something. I don't know.
It doesn't make sense. does
Yeah, it doesn't
really,
make
when
sense.
you
But
think about it.
yeah, so so it's scary a little bit on that end from if you represent buyers, because you're wondering, okay, how am I going to get compensated?
Well, see, that's the thing. I had an agent we did a closing for a couple of days ago. He only does buyers.
Yeah.
He actually is in the Hispanic market, and he just,
Mhm.
but
Oh,
he
yeah.
does, he does 4 closings a month.
Yeah.
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 So,
And that might be he might be that guy that really runs.
and those
the
people
scenario.
really need him because
Yeah.
I mean, some of them can't speak English. How's a non-English speaking person going to go out and listen to listing agents,
Get
or go on the
represented.
internet and
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's been frustrating too, because it's affecting the buyers, because those that can't potentially afford a buyer's agent directly, they have to rely upon a seller can still, and a lot of agents are we're having a lot of conversations as agents. So there's plenty of agents out there that still feel like sellers are going to be offering some level of compensation, but we're just going to have to find out what that level of compensation offer is.
Well, the things I've been watching talk about that in the buyer's agreement you're supposed to put what your fee is.
Yeah.
And then, but you don't know.
What
That
the-
also, but like all your listings on your website
Yeah.
can have what you're paying the buyer commission.
Yeah.
All the listings on your literature at the open house can say what the buyer's commission
Sure.
is.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably how it's going to roll out.
Yeah. And I feel like
And,
it will
and
too.
sellers that don't offer buyer compensation, nobody will come look at their house.
I know, and that's really, so I know there are some sellers, and I've even had some already that are talking
Yeah.
about this July date.
They think they don't
thinking,
have to pay that now,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
they're going to lower the price 3%, right?
Yeah,
no, they're going to keep the 3%.
Yeah, because I've literally had these conversations.
That was
where-
the whole lawsuit. It was like it's raising the price. But the
Yeah.
sellers are going to give that 3% to the buyer.
And some of those big headlines were, okay, this is disrupting the commission structure, prices are going to come down, and it's like, no, they're not. There's not a single seller I know
100%
that would they're just going to stick any difference in their pocket. They're not going to adjust the price down. They'll just keep, it'll keep going like it has always gone, ticking up a little bit, over the years. But so when you're putting that buyer rep together, you're putting in there what you're negotiating with the buyer, what's your commission, what you want to be paid, whether it's a commission amount, whether it's a hard dollar amount. I mean, you could probably even get creative and do an hourly fee, but I think that really gets
I think some people were talking
wonky.
about, I'll represent you for $1,500,
Yeah.
and I'll do this service or whatever.
Yeah.
And platinum package, I'll do more.
Yeah, I've seen that too, where people offered multiple varieties of
Some even talked to
compensation.
me about lawyers
Mhm.
representing buyers.
Yeah.
We're not going to go out and help them like realtors do, but we could help them through the contract process.
The transaction, which you always could anyway. So,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because a lot of what we're facing right now are things that could always have existed. I mean, they do
Yeah,
exist.
the
They
lawsuit
just-
didn't
they just-
change any of it.
Yeah, it's just it's all of a sudden people have a lot of fear over what potentially could look like. So, I think what's really going to happen, especially after talking to a lot of sellers. I mean, I've got 11 listings going on right now, probably 4 more coming to market. So I'm talking to a lot of sellers and buyers at the same time. But I think what's going to happen is there's going to continue to be offers of compensation made by the seller. I mean, they're smart to do that because right now, and I can tell you from if you're a selling agent or listing agent, you want buyer agents out there helping to promote and market your property. I mean, just throwing it out there and trying to
I think this is the big myth. Sellers can't pay buyers agents commission anymore, and they just say, I just
Yeah.
made 3%.
Yeah.
That's what that's they hear all the rest of it, they only remember that part.
Yeah.
So you've had some sellers that thought that was what the deal was.
I've already had some mention to me. Well, might just wait till July, and then I don't have to pay that. And it's
they're so in tune. They
yeah,
know that when it's
but I
coming.
let them know. I say your best bet to get the most amount of money for your house, and it's going to be way more than the offset of any commission, is to offer a compensation to buyer's agents. Then they're out there on your behalf trying to help sell your home, to their buyers. So you have like an army of buyer agents out there that are working on your behalf as a listing agent, as a seller. And so it's it's the smartest way to go is to still know that there's compensation out there wherever it gets negotiated down to. But and if it's not as much as what you have in your buyer's rep.
Well, you have if you're not offering broker compensation and the buyer's agents are not showing that house, but for that reason,
Yeah.
which may or may not be ethical, we'll talk about that. But then the buyers are just not going to be represented.
Yeah, which is an
It's
ugly
scary,
scenario
yeah.
for them too. Because I run into situations with buyers all the time where, as an investor agent too,
Right.
where I focus on a lot of investor, I do a ton of residential still and commercial and land development and all this stuff. But with investors, they come to me a lot of times because they can't find the deal, and I know the local market, I know a lot of the landscape of it, so that's a lot of proving value out right there is just bringing them opportunities they wouldn't normally get.
Well, the thing about this is where I was going to go. I lost my train of thought. If you've got thousands of agents, because you're paying broker commission, bringing you buyers, that's going to competition and make the price go up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you win the same deal and didn't offer broker commission, and you're not going to get as many offers, the price is not going to get as high. So you're not earning the 3%.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not keeping 3% because your price is going
I mean, you
down.
might as well have a for sale by owner or
Yeah,
something sitting out
really,
there.
you might as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, why list with an agent
Yeah.
if you're not going to pay broker compensation?
Outside of it getting out in the MLS, but
You see, now it doesn't have to be on the MLS. I
Yeah.
think without the compensation, you just go to Realtor.com or Homes.com.
Yeah,
I mean, they have
exactly.
every listing. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how it's going to change the landscape of it potentially, but I do feel like there's I do feel like a lot's going to stay the same. It's just going to be a little different in how we go about it, and those commissions get structured. But I really worry about some buyers that if they get in scenarios where there's no compensation offered and they don't have the ability to make those, because they're not going to want to sign that buyer rep agreement thinking that they potentially could be on the hook for that if there's not a buyer, an offer of compensation, on the other side, if they don't have that money. And then what happens is they'll have to work directly with that listing agent. So there's dual representation, which happens, but you're not
Nobody
getting,
likes it, though.
Yeah, nobody likes it. But if a listing agent's not getting compensated for that buyer, I mean, they're not gonna treat them the same, nearly the same, and they're gonna be on the lookout and serving their best interest of the seller.
Well, that's why people
the
don't
listing
do
agent.
dual agency, because you can't
Mhm.
represent both interests. Their interests are opposed.
Yeah.
You know, one wants the cheapest price, one wants the highest price.
Yeah, and a dual agency now is with that agent getting both sides of the commission. So you can imagine if they're only getting paid by one side, and then you have another person over
Yeah, you
here
got fiduciary duty, somebody not paying you anything.
not paying you anything.
Well, the
I
other
mean,
thing, there's some mortgage companies talking about it. I don't know if they'll be able to do it
Mhm.
because it doesn't make sense to, finance the buyers. Because
Yeah.
that's essentially what happened. The mortgage companies
Finance the commission
Finance
into
the
the-
commission. And, so the bankers are saying, we can't do that because, it's sold for this. We can't.
Yeah.
Our LTV is going to be wrong. But
Yeah.
you've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's true.
The seller raised the price 6% if he's paying 6%.
Yeah, that's exactly true. I mean, they have been.
So
doing
there
it
may
for
be a
years.
mortgage
Yeah.
company that steps up. And
Yeah.
That's another possible.
Yeah, because I know, like right now, VA loans can't. You can't. A buyer can't.
Well,
make
they
any
have
compensation.
ruled that broker compensation is not an interested party contribution, so it would be allowable on
Even VA?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think So not positive, but I just
Mm-hmm.
saw. I certainly saw people talking about it, but I also saw some. There's a John Bell at the VA administration. He's from Middle Tennessee. I don't know if you
Okay.
knew that. He's like he runs.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
really
didn't know that.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was in the mortgage business with us, but he's in Washington running that.
Huh.
I need to call him. But it seems like him or somebody was talking about how if they don't call it what I just said, a party contribution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interested party contribution.
So, and I can give a great example. Like, I've had a couple of listings recently where I'm representing the listing side again, and there's a buyer that's, in the mix, and something happens and that buyer has to pull out, and that buyer is trying to fight for their earnest money, which is something that every buyer has to put down on the front end. So that's a lot of money in some cases for those people. I mean, they don't have another earnest money that they can go put down on
Right.
something else. So if there is a dispute or if there is any kind of
Yeah.
argument over those dollars, me as an agent representing a listing agent, but I don't have any financial contribution or financial incentive on the buyer side, you're not
Or
going to fight.
fiduciary duty.
Yeah, you have your duty
You're not
to
going
the
to fight
seller
your
side.
seller.
Yeah, exactly.
To talk to them and to give the buyer when the buyer may rightly
Yeah.
deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of unintended consequences. We're going to have to stop there, but we will keep informed on the NAR settlement and how the industry works that out, because I think that's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
How
100%.
how it gets done.
It's all going to start. It's all going to change, and it's all going to it's going to get clear, and then it's going to get muddy again because could be a whole nother wave of buyer lawsuits that come from all this. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see where that.
Well, I
gets.
think there
Yeah.
are. I mean, there's some that aren't settled yet, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Well, we'll see how it is. You can see how real life and real estate intersect.
Mhm.
Sometimes, and it's really doing it right there.
100%. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Steve, thanks for coming.
Oh, yeah,
to,
absolutely. I
Real
appreciate it.
Talk.
Yeah.
Everybody, thanks for viewing today, and we'll see you next time.